Hey, so I'm about 15 minutes into this, and these are mostly interviews of the people within the community in Texas. I don't exactly know. Well, it says Houston, Texas, right? And I don't know exactly um, everything about these people, but I know that there's that allure of being on camera and being documented and being on the internet or on film forever, right? Immortality, like actual immortality. And these disaffected youth, which is the terminology I would use, in which a lot of these people, they come from smaller communities and they don't identify, they were ugly ducklings or something along those lines within their younger years. And so they're so eager to fit in with the popular people. This is nothing new, right? This is just the teenage years. And again, I identify with these people. My heart goes out to them, and I'm looking at Elliot Felipe, whom identifies as a man, and she says that she's on treatments, hormone treatments, testosterone. And I'll relate this to a personal story from my own life, in which my warrant officer in cadets, went to Trent, and then I went to Trent University as well. And I talked to her about it. I'm just because I was curious, like, why would you want to go on this kind of journey to become the other gender, like, but it's like it's this permutation of extremist feminism, and now the black pill thing, which has been around for a very long time. And I was listening to it. I was hearing what they had to say about all these things about female nature, which I knew, well, I understood, but I didn't know so well, because, well, I have two older sisters, and they have been the best educators in my life as to how to treat women. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting in this house if I was a sex offender. Simple as that. Now, this warrant officer, she became a doctor, right? And then she had top surgery, as far as I remember. And then she unfriended me and fell off the map. And I was supportive. I'm like, all right, fine. You want to figure yourself out? Go ahead and do that. But these pressures that young people face, in forging their identity and their association, especially young women, which are, this is what I've said. I've started developing this into an actual phrase, right? And I don't remember the name, the terminology. Forgive me, I'm having a beer here. I don't give a shit. I'm not going anywhere for another couple of hours. Anyways, the way this is going is, I wish I still had contact with her, and I look at Elliot Page, or Ellen Page, and I think about body dressing, in which transgenderism is queer elitism, because it's a competition as to whom is going to be the dominant in a relationship and who's going to be the submissive. And so when I see that young people like 18 or 19 years old are reading queer theory, and they don't have the context as surrounding the conceptualization and the foundation of such a thing, which is then critical theory, and they don't have the understanding, even furthermore, backwards in history as to the context of these movements and why they happened. And so this is a permutation of it's the circle of life. It really is. You're born, you live under your parents, you learn everything you can from them, and then you start developing your own personality, you start developing your own identity, and you're forging your way into the world with whatever tools that you've been given. And not everyone has the same environment in order to develop the skills and familiarity with those tools in order to survive in the real world. And that's where these subcultures develop, is so that these people can survive. But there's markers, there's indicators, and there's rituals, rites and rituals to every single one of these subcultures, right? And we don't get rid of them, because it's only natural of human psychology and collective tribal survival that if you don't go with the crowd, you ain't gonna make it. You're gonna choke on your own spit or something like that. And this is where the negative side of medicine, in which we think that technology can solve every single thing and can solve every single problem. Say with the hormones, the hormones for Pfizer are extremely profitable. Extremely profitable. And, the documentation is out there, the articles are out there, but these people don't necessarily know and don't want to be told the truth. They don't want to recognize and to pull the wool from off of pull the veil off of their head, their eyes, as to see how other people are manipulating them to their own ends, in which that individual has power over the community and influence. And that's how they survive, because they don't have any pragmatic or practical skills. And, this is a result of our culture as a whole, because we keep, not to expand this any further, or to digress from the topic, but nonetheless, the history of propaganda is exactly like this. It is exactly like this. It is weaponized artwork that affects and effects the culture at large, because it's immediately understandable. I almost couldn't snap my fingers there. But we can't expect the audience to understand the message, because if we do, well, then we're made the idiot as the creator. Now, these people, they were not born this way. Okay? Gay people are not born that way. I'm sorry, Lady Gaga, but it's the truth. It's the absolute truth. And the tendency towards homosexual behavior has to do with a hormone imbalance that is caused by environmental contamination and by overpopulation, if not outright desperation. And this is why generations of the past didn't put as much weight on sexuality, because of religious and cultural values. And everything that's happened after postmodernism in the academic realm arguably is garbage. It's garbage. And it was done so that the less intelligent could come up with argumentations that would put them in positions of power that were unwavering and unassaultable. But that's a fallacy. That's a logical fallacy. Every position is assaultable, if I'm going to put it like that, in terms of military terminology. Every single position can be overrun. Every single one. Applied force. I'm not going to get into the evil of all of this. I'm just observing through this documentation, hopefully without bias, of these people. And that's why you make a documentary in the first place. Is to document. And not to interrupt. We'll see you at the end. Okay, we're going to finish up, or as I just finished up, rather. The short doc, it's this is what trans punk looks like. And whatever I said in the other two segments or pieces before this, I will commentate on, yes, if you're asking for leadership, don't expect to find it. You have to, especially in such controversial spaces, if you want to find yourself, you can't do it in other people, and you can't do it through social movements. The only way that you're going to find yourself is through life experience. And I'm not suggesting that you bend over backwards or forwards in order to gain that wisdom. Have some trust in older people or other older punks. You never know which person used to be you when you were not, when you are, or so used to be you when they were under the age of 19 or so, still developing their relationships and their bonds. And this is why the indoctrination happens so young, is that there's an element of peer pressure, and again, recap of stuff I've already said, and naivete, and like you wonder, like, why do people rebel even within supportive homes? And again, it has to do with developmental psychology. And as I said before, you know, there's I'll admit there's places in the world of psychology that Foucault is correct, but they're very few and far between. And since you know, you don't use Foucault on adults because it'll just run you into trouble. Because of game theory, right? Because children are extremely manipulative, and so you have to manipulate them back. And this is one of the issues in which women go too far and they start manipulating their husbands and treating them like children, which is exactly what happened in the larger sphere of society within the past 25 years. Longer. You know, I look at the mass acceptance of homosexuality after you know, everybody, not what's it, oh shit, Dharma and Greg, not Dharma and Greg, the other one. I can't remember it because I don't care to remember it. Although I did like Dharma and Greg, funny enough, you know, young me not really knowing and understanding all of the subtexts. And let's see, what's it? Will and Grace, that's what it is. Will and Grace. And then Ellen, you know, two of them were out at the same time. And then quite possibly the Drew Carey show with Mimi.
You know, as far as I could tell, an out and proud lesbian, the character, not the actor, which is interesting enough. You know, we again to recap what I said in the previous two segments of this video. Like when we're teenagers, we seek to forge our identity separate from our parents, and so that's why rebellion happens in conjunction with hormones, which is completely normal and natural. It's part of the cycle of life, and I don't want to get rid of it. You know, I don't want to alter it. I don't want to be involved. And I think that other people should just leave the kids alone, right? We should just fucking leave them alone. Don't get involved. This is why Socrates why Socrates drank the hemlock, right? Because he was poisoning the youth. And you don't poison childhood, because you know what happens is that later in life, they'll figure out what happened to them, and then they'll come after you, and then they'll kill you, or they'll harm you, or they'll do irreparable damage to your reputation. That's just the way it is. That's the circle of life. And if we've seemed to have forgotten that, younger people and academics have seemed to have forgotten that, is that, and this is why they've been pushing MAID and trying to stress people out in order to get them to kill themselves, is so that they don't have accountability, the academics and the institutions. So like the governments and the the corporations that produce the hormones, and the hospitals that do the surgeries, because they're extremely profitable. And then the insurance companies that make money off of your death and your surgery. And so, you know, I will reach out to what's it, temporary tots here. Again, yes, this is uncomfortable for me, because, you know, I've seen, you know, coming from a background of, you know, a Christian church-based unsanctioned therapy and counseling, because that's what it is. You know, the pastor does couples counseling and so on and so forth, relationship advice. And there's groups, you know, of course, there's church groups about, well, support groups, say, with the book, I Love You, But I Don't Love Your Behavior. Her name's Lynn. I don't remember. She's an older woman now. Or Alpha, you know, or Alcoholics Anonymous. All of these things, they take place within the church, and the context really matters. Now, the churches, many churches have touted their status as safe spaces for queers and transgenders. And you know, I went to an art gallery. I think it was PHI, which is the avant-garde modernist art gallery in downtown Montreal, with a friend at the time. And one of the exhibits had to do with a Mexican transgendered bar that got demolished, and then it was a bunch of portrait photos of the transgendered people, the transgendered men, really, because a lot of them were dressing as women. So whatever, I don't really give a shit anymore, because my intent is to at least repair the damage that has been done, or at least some of it. You know, leave it better than how I found this culture. And how I found this culture when it came to the Age of Reason was an absolute cesspit of toxic fucking garbage, and it has nothing to do with my sex or gender, or my identity, or my past. It has everything to do with the propaganda. And the unsanctioned usage of this propaganda, and then the scientific principles that support the propaganda as communicated and exposed in exposition by the documentary The Century of the Self, Edward Bernays. You know, this is again the very basis of marketing itself. And it has to, you know, again, that has to do with hyper individualization, globalism, Ponzi schemes, and the removal of value from paper currency, making it fiat currency, right? Not backed by anything, only debt. And all of this has you know, it compounds, and it you know, it stirs in this pot, it brews in this witch's coven. And again, because there is, and I've mentioned this within the history of propaganda, there's a suicide cult aspect. You know, this nihilistic view of humanity and the earth, so having to do with climate change and overpopulation, because transgenderism is a permutation of homosexuality, and as I've mentioned within again, I've mentioned within body dressing that, you know, transgenderism is queer elitism, because only certain people can afford the hormones and can afford the surgeries. Right? We in Canada still in 2024 on the 22nd day of April still pay and support through insurance, medical insurance, the hormones and the surgeries. And then we know the statistics, right? 40% or more experience suicidal ideation, right? And this is my thing. So as much, again, I'm uncomfortable, but I'm doing the suicide prevention with Shirtless Bro, and I'm trying to, you know, communicate a healthy body image by my example, and how much work it actually takes and dedication it takes to bring yourself to center. And it's a huge effort, because you have to cut out all your fucking friends. You have to cut out the fucking drugs. You have to cut out the fucking booze. You have to cut out the media that you're ingesting. You have to go basically do a dopamine detox in the middle of nowhere, you know, and you won't find answers in drugs. So don't expect, you know, the peyote buttons to teach you anything, or the mescaline, because it'll just torture you for hours and hours on end, a whole day even, if you're not prepared for that. You know, and I know this from watching and listening to other people, right? Talking, you know, their trip reports, even off of Arrowhead, right? How terrible an ayahuasca trip can be. And it's irreversible. After the ayahuasca trip, you took ayahuasca. Just like transgender surgeries, you will never be the same again. It's irreversible. Don't let the doctors tell you that it's reversible. It isn't. It's not. I don't know if I missed this. Yes, I was a preppy goth. I would consider myself to be a preppy goth. You know, that was the people that I hung around with when I was younger, and before the rec room got closed, and that's where all the weirdos hung out within London. And I was happier there than I was at Jim Bob Ray's or GT's or any of these other you know, drinking bars. Anyways, the gist of it is that it'll be okay. Just don't bow down to peer pressure. Develop your own opinions, and don't parrot what other people tell you. You might live to regret it later. That's it. Thanks for watching. This has been my response to the doc about the Texas transgender punk scene, just in one place. Again, this is very limited. I'm not gonna rest on my laurels and say I know everything, but it's the repeating cycle of life, and that's why I call it transtrenderism, because eventually people will get sick of it, and it's not cool anymore. It's not in vogue. You know, it's not avant-garde. It's not edgy. It's not authentic. All of these things that you seek out to forge and solidify your identity as a young person. And I understand the questioning. I do. And again, it has to do with everything that you are ingesting and who you're hanging around. And if you haven't been told that, then I'm sorry that it didn't happen for you and that your parents weren't around for that. Some people just have harder lives than others, and there's nothing you can do about it. Not everyone's going to make it to the age of 25 or 27. You know, the 27 club, the suicide club. You can't just keep living on the edge until you're 27, because you'll end up being 27 and you're still around the next day, or 3 days later you wake up after you fucking swallowed a whole bunch of pills. I don't know how you plan to kill yourself, and frankly I wish you didn't. That's it. Okay, final. Later.